Hello, welcome to IC Show TV. This is the latest in our series of panel discussions at IC 2020 in Amsterdam. Many thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at content creation, a kind of hot topic at the moment. So joining me to my left is Luke Verminal from First Impression. Next to him is Tyson Reid from One Media. Next to him is Lee Dennison from White Knight. And at the end, last but not least, is Pete Cliff from Holovis. Welcome, gents. So it's a topic that we've been covering with interest, probably the last 12 months, more than ever. I mean, how big, if you don't consider your company to be part of the AV industry, how big do you think this sector could be for the industry? Do you consider you guys to be part of the AV industry, or are you outside and kind of looking in? And how big do you think content could be, really?
I think content is already big.
Yeah.
I think the time of just selling hardware is in the past.
Gone, yeah.
It's about selling experience in the future, and experiences are the right combination between content, between the right concept, and between the hardware and everything in between.
Yeah.
And that is what we at least think is going to be the future. I'm basically already doing. We have a department of more than 20 people already in our organization that's just focusing on concept and content creation.
Yeah. Tyson, how big is the opportunity for you?
So we're sort of specialised content agency for digital signage, and so we've been in the AV industry for sort of 10 years plus. I think when we first started, it was all about hardware, with customers that found it very difficult to spend. So
have you been banging a sort of content drum for 10 years?
Very much so, and of course when we started, they'd spend £100,000 on hardware and screens, and sort of quibble over £1,000 for content. And the landscape has completely changed, but we still are faced with some people like that. But we've sort of had orders and customer orders in excess of the hardware value now. So things have really changed, and along with sort of offering managed services in that recurring revenue sort of model as well, has really made some significant changes for us and for the end users as well. They get their return on investment from actually thinking about content first, rather than sort of just putting up the equipment and then wondering what to do with it. So we really feel that it's made a major impact.
The graph is moving in the right direction.
In the right direction, and of course we'd like to make more in that sort of sector. But it's very much changed over the last year. But I'd like to see it grow more.
Sure. Lee, you're here to represent integrators.
Whether
you like it or not, how does that? How do you feel integrators are coping with?
I was trying to think about this discussion and kind of bring some context to it. We're all a bit guilty, and I think we've got to find that happy medium, because if you walk around here and you look at some of the video content, it's all shot in 8K, it's all shot in fantastic, it looks amazing, but it's not real, because we're dealing with clients generally who don't have content houses who can generate that type of content. So whether you're in a conference environment, you're dealing with a PowerPoint presentation, you're dealing with video that may be ripped from YouTube, and you're dealing with audio that's MP3 based. So we're not having that luxury of showing what the technology can do to the highest level. We've got to kind of base it back. So I think there's an education tool that we've got to bring clients further into the game and get them to see the potential they can have with some of the amplification technologies that are out there.
Yeah.
But we've also got to do that education piece about helping them, or how do they engage with content manufacturers, how do they use their in-house teams a bit better, how do they put a bit of structure into place that can really maximise what they're doing, because there's no point specifying all this kit that isn't really going to achieve anything more than if the source is still at that basic level. So I think there's a really happy medium. We as integrators and manufacturers have got to lead the way and bring people through and show them the ability of what they can do. But I think we've got to help them understand what they can do. It's education.
Sure. When I was with Milligan, so I spent 12 years as a client before moving over to Holovis. One of my big issues was that every time we get to a point of deployment, we'd have different companies doing disparate elements of an experience. So one person doing the screen, one person doing the audio, one person doing the content, one person theming the room, and it would all clash. It just wouldn't work together. It was a pain for us. It was more costly for us. So I think the ability to bring some of that capability, even if it's just a thought leader within the business, an art director who can manage that transitional piece, is incredibly powerful, and we're finding that more and more often. I think a big difference for us as well, because we work primarily in the themed entertainment world. Content has always come first, or should always come first. What's the experience we're telling? What's the story we're telling? Technology should be a tool to tell that, amongst other things. It's how all these elements come together in one homogeneous kind of experience. So for us, content is incredibly critical to be the
Basically, that's concept that's going to be first. The right concept to be created together with the right content, but also hardware can be a creative tool too in creating the right, the right experience.
It can definitely inspire an experience, an element of something it can do. But I think where we find where we struggle is when we get a client going, I want a VR experience. I want 8K video. Like, why? What are you doing? What are you doing with it?
They want the technology and
technology is not
it's
not the purpose. It's got to be the concept. Yeah, VR can be really nice.
We kind of do this piece where we kind of flip it, starting with the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve, and then assimilate, that kind of technology, that amplification process around it. But if they've got no idea what they're trying to achieve, but it's the key buzzword, or it needs to be immersive, it needs to be VR, that's a whole education.
It's a really interesting point which you're mentioning, because that's basically what's the client actually asking, and what we see more often is that we try to reshape the question first before we go into bringing the right solution. Because if you just answer the question the client is asking and his knowledge level is like over here, but we can offer up to here, you're only going to offer him something in line with his own knowledge and expectations.
I think it's incredibly important for us as integrators also to educate the client in terms of what's out there to tell those stories. Don't just keep trying to flog the next best projector or next best screen. There's some wonderful experiences now. There's a company called Darkfield. Darkfield do audio-only experiences. So they simulate, one's called Coma, one's called Flight, and one's called Seance. So they're kind of ethereal, otherworldly experiences, all done with 3D sound in a black box. And it's a brand new experience, and it's selling out. And that's great, because someone said, I want to simulate the experience of being in a coma. Well, how are we going to do it? Let's just do sound, and let's do it incredibly well. And that's what I think is important to try and do.
The right technique, the right content for the right concept, and then they match. You don't need a screen for that.
And it's drawing on the senses, is that kind of, we forget that we use these a little bit too often, then we use those, and our ears are far more emotive sometimes to things around you, and you smell, and then you're sort of harking back to those days of 4D cinema and really adding those elements to it. But it's that bit of educate and challenge, we kind of want to challenge clients to, really deliver on what their concept is and take it off that kind of the laptop or the screen and take it into a real world. And that's a journey, and that's a journey we all go on with them. Right technology, right solution, right product, not necessarily the biggest, the best, the brightest, and the loudest. It's it's a trust, and it's a journey, because that only then gains the experience that everybody's after.
Went on to the sordid issue of money, but how do you find it is when we were talking content? How do you find that discussion? Do the clients place enough value on content? Do you have to really convince them to spend money on content? How does that?
It's weird, isn't it? No. Some of the sectors we work in, content, they will spend a fortune on content, but they'll quibble over the price of a projector or a speaker or a light, for that amplification of that content. But you kind of go, you've just spent all this money on some, fantastic imagery or sonics or presentation data, but you won't spend the money on transmit it into an environment you all can see. So it's really weird. We're dealing with people who understand content, because that to them is their brand, it's their recognition. They'll spend the money, but they'll quibble over the equipment. But then you do get the flip side of people understanding that I've spent all this money on this projector, or this, what do you mean I've got to pay for? And you kind of go, the product is only as good as the content that's delivered.
Pete, you're saying about the technology, sorry, you were saying about, they want the bells and whistles and stuff. Do you have to say, look, you don't need an 8K screen, the money you can get on just an HD screen you can spend on
absolutely,
longer time for us to develop a story?
Because you can have, as at the point you were making, you can have an 8K projector, but the content's rubbish. So it doesn't matter. Or you can have fantastic content running off a slide projector, for example. So I think, I would say quite a lot of my clients aren't aware of the cost that's involved in making fantastic content. That's. And that's sometimes an education point.
It's a harder thing to price than a projector.
Of course it is, because what is content?
Well, it's subjective.
What is it?
That's the thing. Right? If you look at an AV system, a lighting design, you can get a system that works, and if it works, it works. It might not be the best equipment in the world, but it's when it's functional. Whereas a piece of content can be functional. You've got a video that lasts 10 minutes, and all these beats happen, but that doesn't mean it's good. And so I think the subjectivity of media content is one of the biggest challenges. I also think we've got this example now, but I think it's really important for whoever's kind of providing the whole solution to really understand how content is built and how an audience will absorb that content, because you don't always have to spend a huge amount of money to create a great experience. Sometimes it's about, actually, I think the audience is going to be looking here now or over here, so this bit of content we can make a little simpler, we can play around with. So I think it can be orchestrated in a way that becomes cost effective, but if done intelligently.
Luke, how do you find that conversation about money and content? Is that a difficult one to find a balance?
It depends, of course, always on the client, but I think that the discussion is, for us as a company, is not really an issue, because we integrate basically all the parts in the process in one company. So either if the hardware is going on the left and the content and concept is going on the right, it's still in the same company. But I want to, just what you just mentioned, I think one important element is missing in the total journey, and that is data. Data is getting more important every day, and by generating the data out of all the solutions and experiences we offer, it's much easier in the future to convince the client to invest in content, because we can show them what their return on investment is. What are their KPIs? Are we reaching those KPIs? And that is, I think, it's not only going to help us in the future, but the whole industry in the future, if we connect all the dots and fit in the middle in the whole process of that client. Sure. It's basically, especially if we look on retail, those retail spots of that client are basic. It's the best medium they have. It's their own spot.
Tyson, how I'm guessing it's vital the content to a sort of digital signage campaign.
Absolutely,
to get that right.
absolutely.
And can you? Is it harder to? Do you find it hard to?
The money discussion for us is interesting. I think we typically work via the channel, so via integrators. And I think we've got to a point where actually many of our customers do truly understand the value of spending the right value on. And it's actually more the education of our integrators. We've got some that are a real mix. They really love the services side and see the value in that. But then also we've got some that are still sort of stuck in that kind of, box shift mentality, where it's a bit of a struggle to try and get them to relay the concept of, we'll sort of put a quote out, they'll see the numbers and they sort of back off a little bit. But actually, if we were to have a direct not a relationship, but a direct communication with the customer, they typically understand it and they know. And we're fortunate to have got to that stage now where we do have a lot of customers that really do value the sort of spend that's required in order to achieve their sort of return on investment and get those campaigns out. So again, it comes back to, for us, education to be able to get that expectation met for the customer and get those kind of integrators a little bit more on board.
Sure. Lee, how does your relationship with? Do you do content, or do you work with an agency?
We work with a number of different. Again, we try to be agnostic, and we try and present clients with the right content created based on what they're trying to achieve, because it's all very personal. It's art, it's subjective, it's that whole piece. There's different ways of working. I think there's just a challenge there about the whole return on investment piece, and we get that a lot from clients. Say, look, we want to spend this money, what we're going to get back from it. And I think we're trying to tell people it's not about return on investment, it's return on engagement or return on objectives. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want your audience to get from it? And what are they going to take away from that to then allow you to do more and more and more? So that financial challenge is definitely there, but we're trying to flip it back to go, but content can be amazing. It's not engaging.
It's not always about engagement. Sometimes it can be a hard KPI too. It depends.
It all depends, absolutely. But then that comes back to right content, right application, right people doing the content, and is the message correct, and what are you trying to achieve? So we try and again influence people by going, look, there's lots of people out there, what do you like, what are you looking for, and do that journey with them, and then help them develop that content the right way.
Sure. I mean, this one's kind of to Luke and Pete initially, but I mean, you've got content people as part of your business. Do you see that department growing, or has it grown in the past? And I mean, are you putting more funding into that?
It's yes on all the questions, basically. The content departments
because it can
in
be
our
profitable?
company, it can be profitable, but it's not only profitable. It's an added value to the company in general. It started off as a company, like many others, that just sold hardware. the shift, and they made that transition about 7 years ago from just hardware to selling experience, where concept and content is an integrated part of the product we sell, made it a whole different proposition on the market.
Yeah.
So yes, we are growing not only the whole company, but also, of course, our department. I wouldn't say on a monthly basis, but it almost looks like that. And we've got lots of jobs standing out to fulfill with good people, because the market is growing and growing, and we expect it's only going to grow harder in the coming years.
Sure. Pete, is that the same for Holovis?
Yeah, I think having artists in-house for us has been an incredibly beneficial tool. I think it's important because we do such a large variety of experiences, everything from VR, projection mapping, full dome experiences. We have to be aware of what skill set we've got, because just saying we've got a content person or saying we've got an artist doesn't mean that they can do everything. So I think it's great for us to have them. We leverage their skill of being able to understand the pipeline process, the development process for content, and where we do think it's appropriate, we'll use them to create our own content in-house. We do a lot of work with real-time content interactivity, so we'll use them for that. But like I say, we also leverage third-party media production companies, but then we're using that artist as a liaison, kind of transitional person who can take that content and go, no, this isn't going to work in this aspect ratio. It needs to be broken up into these cameras. You need to do X, Y, and Z to it in order to make sure that the transition from screen to physical experience is seamless. So yeah, it's super powerful for us, but when used tactfully.
I mean, anecdotally, we're talking with other integrators. Are they, aware of the potential? Are they investing in the potential as far as you're concerned?
Some of them are open to talk about it. Some of them obviously is that kind of closed environment and protection. I think there's no, you can't go and sell kit and just leave the client to it. That doesn't work. We talk about this kind of relationships, not supplierships. It's a journey you go on, and you want to be able to take the client through the entire process. And content is just as important, if not more so, as we talk about, as the amplification side of it. So no, you've got to do it, and if you're not doing it, then you've got pockets as deep as anything, and you're managing to survive. But it's the way we're evolving. It's not about the equipment anymore. It's about that whole journey and how it all ties together. And whether that's having the ability to have it in-house, or you're bringing third parties in that are relevant, but it is that entire journey, and it's really important.
It's still important, but it has a different place in the selling process basically than it had before, where just in the beginning it was all about the screens and all about the hardware, and now it's what's in it for me at the end on my KPIs, return on investment and engagement.
Tyson, you said there were some integrators that were, don't want to put words in your mouth, better than others maybe at grasping the sort of content piece.
Yeah, of course. We work with a handful that really have embraced the services side, specifically around that sort of recurring revenue, sort of managed service model. So we kind of offer managed services directly to customers sort of through integrators that don't have that facility, so we sort of perform that role for them. And then we have others that are obviously are much better at it, but we support them for the small components of the sort of digital signage and interactive aspect. So.
Pete, I mean, do you feel all of this is, I guess it's a good thing in business, it's more of a rarity in terms of being able to offer more of a package?
I think we are, and also I suppose when you talk about content, we do a lot of conceptual design for digital experiences specifically. So the Lego attraction that we're doing at the moment is a good example of that. It's rare, but it's incredibly useful. We just have to be careful sometimes because we've got that skill set, or some people then go, we don't want to work with you, because so we have to manage that, and that's what I say. We know what we're good at, and we still engage and liaise with other companies as well.
That sounds like a nice positive way to end. Many thanks, gents, for your time. Thanks for joining us for this latest panel discussion. I think there's the potential in content is absolutely huge, and I think it's vital that the industry kind of grasps it as soon as we can. Many thanks for joining us for this one. There's plenty more on our video channels, and thanks again. Goodbye.